So we have our scene set up, and it's time to think about lighting. The mood is dramatic with superhero undertones, and one thing I know for sure, I want light shining through that window. The first thing that I'm going to do is to place a light there. Now, you would think that the sunlight would work, but that would be a big mistake. Since we are using an open face set, if I place the sunlight in the scene, I will get a 360-degree light. The indirect skylight will shine in front of my character, and I don't want that. Plus, that's not how they do it in the movies. When Hollywood needs to shoot a similar scene, they take a few big bright lights, usually 10,000 watts each, and color calibrated to match the sunlight, and they shine them through a window of a set. This gives enough time for the cast and crew to shoot numerous takes, possibly over the span of a few days, without having to worry about the sun moving around in the sky, changing position, changing the direction of the shadows, and so on. If you see an indoor scene in a movie and the sun is shining through a window, more times than not, it is artificial light. So, we use a similar strategy for our scene. We place a spotlight behind the window pointing inside. The spotlight is a good candidate here because it's easy to control. A spotlight shoots light in one direction, so you don't have to worry about light spilling on other parts of the scene. The width of the cone can be used to further limit the region affected by it. Let's add the spotlight and use the universal tool for easy positioning of the light more or less where it should go. To fine-tune the position, I switch the camera point of view to use the spotlight. This is one great feature of Studio. I know from the framing of my rendering camera that the top half of the window is now visible, and that gives me a lot of freedom in positioning the light because I don't have to worry too much about seeing the light source in the frame. Okay, let's switch back to the default camera and call reality. First of all, we want to check the material for the window. Search for the material named glass, owned by the rw_glass_1 object. If it's set to be of type glass, then you are all set. We want to make the reflection color a bit higher. 113, 113, 113. Other than that, we can leave all the other parameters as they are. Set the frame at 75% or even 50% to see a quick render of the scene, and click Render Frame. This doesn't seem to be doing what we expect. The light goes through the glass, but we don't see much of it. We do see the color of it on the floor, but not much else. We could click on the Light Groups tab and make the light brighter. No luck there. What is this all about? The simple answer here is that there is nothing to see behind the glass. We have just the vast void of unrendered space. Any ray of light cast from our point of view to there never comes back. And there is nothing in front of the window because our space is actually a simple wall. We don't have a real room around us. Behind our camera, There is the same infinite void that there is behind the window. This is a very unnatural situation, and the image shows that result. So here is how you fix it. We simply add the plane outside the window, large enough to cover it completely from the camera point of view. We then shine a light on it so that it shows through the glass. Also, keep in mind that this glass is 1 polygon thin, which is not the correct way of modeling glass for realistic scenes. But for now, we don't bother with this. Let's add the plane and change the parameters for it in this way. The X position is at minus 529. The Y position is at 718.4. The Z value is set at minus 1580.18. Now we need a bit of tilt, so we change the X rotation to 101.64. Finally, we need to make this a lot bigger. Before I give you the exact number, I want to show you a good way to judge the sides without having to guess or find out only after the render has gone for a while. The window is quite opaque, and from the camera point of view, we can't see the perimeter of the background plane. If we switch our view to the lit wireframe mode, we can see where the plane ends in relation to our window. So now we can easily change the sides until it covers the glass completely. The final values are 1252.6 for the general scale parameter and 202.3 for the X scale parameter. To make this background plane work, we also need a light. The light will make the plane visible, and so the colors from the glass will be visible. I will use a spotlight for this because, again, it's easy to control and avoid light spilling on the other parts of the scene. Again, this is a fundamental principle of artistic lighting. Control your light. The light has to do its job and avoid interfering with other parts of the scene they should not touch. Now, you will see in a minute the effect of this change. So, let's add a light, and I will enter the parameters for it that I previously copied from the final scene. Of course, when I placed this light originally, I did the adjustment by eye. I didn't type the values, but for this tutorial, it will be easier to give you the values. The point is to see where the light goes to create the desired effect. For this light, the X position is minus 0.0069. The Y position is 0.12, and the Z position is minus 821.91. You can see that I basically keep the light below ground level, pointing up toward the background plane. As a last touch, we need to keep the cone angle much wider, exactly 120 degrees, so that the background is lit fairly evenly. Let's try a render now. Much better. We start seeing the effect. For now, we are not going to worry about the individual intensities of each light, but we want to start right away to do some housekeeping so that we will have control for the lights later on when the scene will gain complexity. This is done in the Reality Lights tab. By assigning a custom light group to the lights, we can then adjust them live while the render runs, which gives a whole new dimension of flexibility to your workflow. To change the name of the light groups, you simply select a light and then click again on the light group name. I'll start with the light that we just created and call its group BG Light for background light. Done. Now let's change the group for the window light and call it, big surprise, window light. Keep in mind that when you define light groups, they are in fact groups. You can group multiple lights together, and that's how it's meant to be used in Lux. You can create single light groups, but that's a special case. That's how Lux works in this regard. Let's try to do another render now with exactly the same lights, but with the groups defined. While the light effect is getting there, we can clearly see that the light from the backdrop is too high. Let's click on the Light Groups tab and make some adjustments. In here, we can turn off a whole group by clicking on the Power button. This is a great way of judging the effect of a group in the scene. By turning all the groups off and then work on a single group, we can see exactly what those lights do. So let's turn both groups back on and adjust the brightness. Less power for the background will give us more definition for the glass. A value of 0.1 for the gain will work nicely. On the other hand, I like to have the light coming through the window quite prominent, so I will increase the window spot to 1.5. This looks great. To keep these values, instead of having to remember them every time I re-render the scene, I switch back to reality and set the gain for my two lights in the same way. Done. So, at this point, I simply exit reality and save the studio scene. All the reality settings will be saved with your scene, so this is a quick and easy way of saving your light settings and everything else that is related to your reality configuration. Now, we need to add some elements to this scene to make it shine. The heroine is the center of this scene, so she needs to be emphasized as much as possible. The background is just to complement her figure and should not compete with her. One of the most common faults that I see in many renders is the competition between different elements in the scene. Think of the visual balance of the image as a finite number. Not all elements in the image can have 100% of the viewer's attention. If the subject has 70% of it, then the rest will have to split the remaining 30%. Here we have a warrior ready to attack, a very dramatic stance, and a window in the back that is there to exalt our hero. The wall in the back is not important, as should go in the dark, so that it provides the contrast necessary to brighten the subject. Also, the dark wall provides a sense of depth that would be completely missing if we were able to see it completely lit. Learn to edit yourself, to let things go dark, and you will learn one of the most valuable skills in image composition. So we are not going to bother with the wall, but we do want to make the hair glow a bit. Placing a light behind the hair of a character, especially a woman, is a very well-known technique of Hollywood and any professional photographer. It creates this wonderful glow around the head which enhances the face. I also want to get some more light on her shoulders. It will add dimension to the figure. For a hair light, we want to generate a spotlight. Let's add it to the scene, and I'll switch the camera to the newly created light while using the two-camera view system to judge if I see the light from the camera. We want to keep the light a bit high, just out of frame. This is the approximate position. To precisely reproduce my original scene, we can use these parameters. X position 40.87, Y position 292.63, Z position minus 59, X rotation 138.51, Y rotation 8.34, Z rotation minus 179.99. That would be basically minus 180. Lastly, the spread angle of the light is set to exactly 10 degrees. As you can see from this trick, we add the light that is correctly motivated. The window gives us the motivation, but the light itself is not part of a real-life environment, of a real-life scenario. Almost no movie is shot only with natural light except for documentaries. All feature films are shot with lighting that is enhanced. Remember, we are not just taking a snapshot, we paint with light. The hair light is another brush stroke that we add to our image. Let's do a quick render to see if the light is positioned correctly. The hair light works. We will then have to add some hair and set the material for it correctly to get the right effect, but so far this is heading in the right direction. At this point we have created the bulk of our scene, found how to shine a light through the glass pane and how to place a background plane to make the color of the glass visible. We also saw how to adjust the light in Lux and copy the resulting values in reality. Lastly, we saw how to place a hair light to enhance the majesty of our heroine. Let's take a quick break, and I'll see you in lesson 5, where we will continue adding more lights to complete our scene.